my name is Krystle, and welcome to Unlock the Story. If this is the first Unlock that you have ever seen, then a very special welcome to you. Unlock is a series that we do here on our channel where we just peel back the layers a little bit with a special guest, and we take the time to unlock parts of their personal story, their personal journey as it relates to them, their art form, and their expression in the community that they live in. So today I am joined by a very special guest, Cynthia Croker, and she is a dancer, she's a teacher, she's a wife, a mom, she's an entrepreneur, and she is one of the artistic directors of Motus O, and that is a dance company located in Southern Ontario that you can also check out. There will be the link in the description box, so make sure you go check out Motus O online as well to see a little bit more about who Cynthia is and what she has been up to. So without any more, let's get straight into our conversation today with Cynthia. Well, welcome. I'm excited to bring on Cynthia Croker, and you're just a beautiful person. We've hung out, I guess this is maybe our second time hanging out together. And I've been so excited as we've been preparing to have you as our guest on Unlock the Story. So before we jump into our discussion today and our theme for today, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Where do you come from? How did you get into your art form?
Yes, well, right now I live in Mount Forest, Ontario. But I grew up in a place called Minneapolis, Minnesota. So if people don't know where that is, it's south of Winnipeg.
I've actually driven through.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
And I just came to Canada for 5 months in 1980. Mm-hmm. And so God had a different plan because I met this crazy Australian, and we were in an organization called Youth with a Mission.
Yeah.
So it was a 5-month course we were both attending, and we both had the same vision to have a performing company one day. It was really bizarre. So I left that conversation going, I've never met anyone going my way. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, that's weird. I'm going to be working with this guy the rest of my life because we actually have the same plan for our lives, what we feel we're supposed to do. So that was, well, so then that was the plan. I actually married that guy. And we did. We found some other people of like mind. Mm-hmm. And 10 years into our marriage, we started Motus O Dance Theatre.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that is so cool. So what attracted you to dance? Were you a dancer like from childhood or?
Well, I have a few memories of sitting on a bench in a dance studio, and I've talked to my parents. My parents now have both passed away, but it was their plan. But because they would tell me the story, I was a very sensitive child, and if people looked at me, I would just well up in tears. Oh. So all the photos of me as a young child, I'm crying. I thought, what's my problem? But my parents were like, oh dear, she's never going to make it through life. So they thought they'd put me in dance, but I was too little. So I have a sister who's 22 months older than me. So my sister Wanda started, and I would just sit and watch, and I was just mesmerized by this. And I have memories of making very young, when I did finally start dance at 5, because they told me you have to wait till you're 5. And then I just would make shapes with my body, and I was just hooked from a very young age.
Wow, that is so cool. I love that. I love it. Like those seeds of just watching. And it's so amazing how much you take in when you just sit and observe, and how that can like plant these longings inside of you when you observe other people doing something that you're like, oh, I want to do that and I can do that. That is so cool.
Yeah. And I think it was important that I had to wait. I had to sit there. I think I was 3.5 when, so I sat there until I was 5. I finally said, am I 5? And, as a kid, that takes forever. It feels like 20 years.
I know.
But can I start now?
I have a 3.5-year-old right now, and he'll look at things and he'll be like, when I'm a big boy, I get to watch this. Yes, yes, Judah. When you are a big boy, you can watch Black Panther and like
Yeah.
all these other movies, or that are around our house, or do the activities he's
Yeah.
seeing his older brother do. He's like, Judah, do that when I'm a big boy.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
concept of time.
And waiting's good. I no, yep, nope.
Nothing wrong with waiting.
Nope.
It's good. It's one of patience, right? One of the fruit of the spirit is patience. So, or part of the fruit of the spirit is patient. So today we want to talk about growth in your craft. And as we were exchanging emails and preparing, I loved what you said about saying, I'm not just excited about my own personal growth, but growth as a whole in the dance community. And so that's what we're going to be kind of talking about, is the growth of dance, not just for you personally, but also as like a larger whole. So I just kind of want to maybe go back to the beginning. And maybe you could share with me, what was dance like when you started?
I started Motus O Dance Theatre, or when I started dancing?
I think more like when you started dancing and you wanted to bring that in to your faith.
What's interesting is back, so I went to a Lutheran church in Minneapolis, and what's interesting, and it's not said, these are just kind of, that's how it was back. So we're talking now, this is the 60s. I haven't been to a Lutheran church recently, but anyway, back then it was pretty much separate. Sort of like your church life was here, and your school life was there, and your hobby life was there. So it wasn't, the only thing that was really in the church life was music. Mm-hmm. And that was, and nobody questioned it. And it was just like, so music is a big deal in Minnesota. Everybody's in a choir. And so there would just always be a song, a soloist would sing, and we'd sing, hymns and stuff like that. So I do remember a secretary of the church every so often to do a little bit of a drama down the aisle. And I just thought that was fantastic. So there was a few things that just sort of started, but it wasn't really, the only really arts that was in the service or at that time was music. And so dance just wasn't even a thought that it would ever be in church. Like that was a hobby that you did over here. It didn't really connect.
Right.
There was no connection in my mind, really. And so it wasn't until I did something called a discipleship training school with Youth with a Mission. And I did that in Los Angeles, California. So specifically Pasadena. And so that was 1979.
And that was, so that changed it for you.
Yeah, that was the first time that I danced my whole life, and I just loved it. That always seemed to be the first love, so to speak. Like I was a voice major at university. Like I was going to be a choir director in the Midwest. And, and so choral music in Minnesota is just and I did that because there was no place to study dance. Back then, like it just wasn't available.
Right.
So it wasn't until I went to this discipleship training school, and they had something called a love feast, which is basically they asked people to do something, whatever you wanted to do at this, at this dinner. And I just had this desire. I just wanted to do a dance. So I did this dance and I don't really remember anything about it, but I just remember I was so like committed to it. Right. Like so people were just kind of like, what was that? Because it was just, there's just such a passion that comes out of me when movement's involved. It's just, and so they just said, you know what, girl, you gotta just go do that. Like they didn't even really know. And that's when the whole thing about dance was coming out. Like that I'm actually, and that's why I left university, because I just felt like I was going the wrong way. I was going to be a choir director in the Midwest, and there's nothing wrong with being a choir director, but that just wasn't what I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
like my music training has been, you know, so helpful. Like I'm the one that works with the conductor when we do live stuff because I speak their language. You know, I'm a music major. Like I know what forte means, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, all the other dancers like, oh, can you go talk to that guy? He speaks this strange language like forte and pianissimo, and I don't know what he's saying. But dance was sort of the thing that was the call. Like my whole school, it's like every time I opened the Bible, all of a sudden I saw it was full of dance, and I never noticed it before.
Yeah,
like it's in there a lot, and that's been my journey. It's like, wow, he's like really into it. Like he really thinks it's cool, right? Because he created it. I'm like, duh.
I love it. So I'm really curious for you, so you had that moment, or that, you know, where you came to this love feast, you did this dance, and there was such encouragement of like, this is what you need to do. So what was that transition like then for you as you took it out of this safe bubble community that was encouraging and into like more, you know, outside that bubble church community? What was that like? Because we're talking the early 70s. What was dance even like at that point in the church community, in the broader community?
Well, it just wasn't really around in my circles. Maybe somebody, you know, we'll find someone who said, no, it was really happening in my church. Like it just wasn't and it wasn't really an idea that dance should even be in the church. There was still such a stigma about it too. And it didn't help that I started out mainly with ballet and tap, but my love became jazz dance. And that's, you know, jazz dance is like, that's his dance. Like
the hip, it's the jazz walk with the hips.
Like, and I realized though what I love about jazz dance is that I've always been attracted to extremes. So the punch and the sustain. Yeah. Like, so it's extreme and rhythm. Like my husband is convinced I'm part Black, but because I just have this rhythm. So ballet was just I love making shapes, but then, man, we got to shake it up.
Got to feel it in different places, right?
Yeah.
Let the music fit different.
So I spent years where I could never dance how I really wanted to dance in a church. Like I've been called a whore. I've been called all sorts of things.
Wow.
I know. I could list all the time. So I'm thinking, well, this isn't good. Okay, so maybe I'll just go over here. Just pretend that didn't happen. And I thought, well, maybe they're right. Maybe that type of dance is just from the devil. Maybe they're, you know, I didn't know.
That breaks my heart just hearing it. Oh my goodness. Wow.
So what's so funny is that, you know, I've never been remotely sexually promiscuous. And so that's what was so bizarre. So you know how God encouraged me with that though, is that, I'm going to bawl because I realized I heard a teaching once talking about Mary, the mother of Jesus, and her whole life people thought she was a whore because she had a baby she got pregnant before she was married. And that was pretty much nobody believed her, right?
Yeah.
And so it was like God was saying, that's okay. You know, because she survived that. So, you know, and God would say, I know you're not a whore. So then I'm like, okay, cool. So then, isn't that beautiful? Like, I just thought, okay, that's really great. Yeah. Wow. So even if everyone else calls me that, I know I'm not, and God knows I'm not. So that's okay. So then I would just keep going.
So how long of a journey was that from like feeling that almost that moment of like commissioning, this is who you are? And how long do you feel like you were in that place of just being completely misunderstood, really, and not
was it probably, we started Motus O Dance Theatre in 1990. So I would say, a good decade.
Wow.
You know, and
like a decade into Motus O.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And I wouldn't, I tried not to bring it up because it was really a volatile situation. And quite honestly, I didn't really know what to say about it because I didn't really know. Like, I felt called into movement, but there was another thing that had to happen for me to really have, I go, well, God, what do you really think about dance? Like, and it wasn't until there was a shift that happened in 2003. And somebody, and again, this was a beautiful thing because a good friend of mine just said, I think you need to go to this conference. Like, he stopped me at church and he goes, I think you're supposed to go. And it was a conference in Chicago on the arts. And I said, okay. And I looked at the thing and I saw how much it cost. And I went, no, I don't think, I mean, because at that time too, I was trying to bridge more of dance with the church. And my husband he kept saying, honey, don't do it. They're just going to eat you alive. Like, it keeps happening. Someone else is going to call you a whore. Then you'll come home bawling. And I'm just give it up. Like, you know? Yeah. And so then, and he goes, just stay away from there. Like, it's just not encouraging, you know? and so I thought, well, maybe he's right. But then, and I said, well, I wanted to find out what God's doing with dance in the church. Like, I really wanted to know. And he was sort of saying it could be happening here. Yeah. And it might encourage you. And I said, but the price tag, my husband's not going to go, okay, you're going to go spend what, $800 to go and see what's happening in the church, the one that keeps calling you a whore all the time. I don't think. So then he said, you know what? We're going to pay for it. The church here. So he had the church pay for me to go.
Wow. Wow.
And I'm like, okay, well, because I really wanted to go, but I know my husband would be like, no, you're not going because, you know. Mm-hmm. So, and that's when I go, okay, something is happening. Like, there was people there from all over the world, and it was all the arts. Like, see, that was always the thing. Music's always been there.
Always.
You know, music's always been there. And so I'm thinking, well, God, you know, I'm good at music. Can I just go in music and then people won't call me a whore? I'm a good singer, right? So, but anyway, and she brought up this woman, Nancy Beach. She goes, I want to see, because she would have people raise their hand. How many people are here because they want to, you know, in music? And you'd see all these people. How many people here with theater? And there was, a bunch. And then at the very end, how many dancers? And I'm like, woo! And there was like maybe 20 of us, maybe 30 in this hall that held probably 5,000 people.
Wow.
It was a bit more, but I'm like, woohoo! Like, we're even now on the map. Okay, but anyway, so there was courses there that I could take, and it was really encouraging. And that's when something happened to me. It was like a burning bush experience. But that would take another whole interview time. That was when God showed me how much he loved dance. Yeah. I actually I went into a room in the middle of the night and I couldn't stand up because the presence of God was so thick, you could not stand up. Wow. So I was on my face going, what is it, God? And then this moaning happened. And he was saying, this is what I feel about dance. Like, it is that. And I'm just like, wow. Like, okay. So I will fight for that. Yeah. I will fight for that. And that's what changed it for me, because I'm not going to fight for my own, like, I don't want to be called a whore. Like, after a while, that's just a dumb thing. Or if it's just about me. But he said, no, this is my creation, and it's not going to be cut out. We just can't cut it out because it's part of him. He said, dance is me, but all the arts are him. So you just can't cut out the ones you don't like. Yeah. Right? Yeah. We're just going to cut that out And so that's when it changed for me. So at 2003, I'm like, who cares? Call me a whore, call me whatever. Like, it didn't matter. All of a sudden, yeah, that's when it didn't matter anymore. And then I'm fighting for this because it's God's personhood we're talking about here. God is a dancer. God is a singer. God is a creator. He's everything. So we can't just cut that out, throw it over there if we don't like it, right? So that's what changed my life, really. That's when I really became a dancer. Woohoo!
I love that. So I love that 2003, in that burning bush God moment, that's when you became a dancer. After how many years of dancing?
2003, and I was born in 1959. Yeah. And so I became a dancer really because I understood that I am an ambassador. We're all ambassadors of God. People don't know they are, but they are. And I had no idea because my whole culture, like dance was never really around, you know, except in a dance studio. And it was just kind of this separate hobby thing, like bowling. You go bowling, you know, but I never kind of connected it with God. Like he created it. It's his precious thing. And I'm like, it's so precious to him. So I was just blown away. Yeah.
That's, there's so much of what you're saying that just deeply resonates with me because dance is a huge, you don't know this part of my story yet, and we'll have more another day about this, but like dance is something that's so huge for me personally, and movement, and it like touches a core bit of who I am that like nothing else can touch. And that struggle of dance in church is so real.
You know, I found this about not just the church, but any large organization, incremental change, just slow bit by bit. That's why we, for kind of a decade, just kind of stayed away from the church, because we just thought, you know what, we don't have time to get embroiled in these conversations. We just don't have the time. Like, we had to work full time. I had 3 kids. I can't be sidetracked into trying convincing them. Like, I just have to so we stayed very separate. Nobody even, like, it was just, yeah. Because we just couldn't emotionally do it. We wouldn't have, well, especially me, I wouldn't have been able to handle it. So
it's
just stayed away.
It's incredible how emotionally draining it truly is and can be.
Totally.
And it's a calling in a battle, right? And
no, it's a total calling. Well, so now I feel like, you know, if, you know, I have something to say and I can now, you know, back it all up. Like, I'm ready, God, now I'm ready. But what's funny is, like, there's been times when I feel like, well, can I say something? And sometimes I felt like, no, just stay silent. Because I've been still edited, you know, like, no, you get pulled aside and say, you know, you can't do that anymore. And I'm like, but you always told me that dance was part of this church. So, and all of a sudden it isn't again. Like, okay. So I said, I need to talk to all the elders. Like, who's making this? And they go, like, no. And so I was going to push that and just say, no, but I really felt the Holy Spirit say no. So I said nothing. And that was actually the hardest thing. And because it was like the Lord was saying, no, it's my battle and it's not about me. So I didn't. But, you know, whenever anybody wants me to, I'll defend dance. But anyway. So
why don't you tell me a little bit about Motus O? And, you know, you've been very candid that for the first 10 years you stayed away from the church, but yet you are Kingdom people. You and your 2 other artistic directors are Kingdom people. So what was that journey like as you reflect on Motus O and bringing the kingdom into the larger, outside the 4 walls world community?
it was kind of lonely for me. But what's always interesting is that even though you didn't feel accepted, it didn't matter so much to my husband or our colleague Jack. They were like, yeah, whatever. I was a bit more like, what? So, but there's always, God always, at least one person believed in us. And at that time, there was a woman named Karen Pascal who was like our cheerleader. She's like, nope, go. And another John and Marion Franklin. So we had 2 people, 3 people. So if you count Marion too, but and they that were just like, yeah, this is your calling. You just go for it. And they were in the kingdom. But again, you know, they could get flack even because John Franklin actually, I guess I can say this. There was a piece the guys did called Curse of Cain, which is the story of Cain and Abel. And it's this dance wrestling piece. And they basically kind of wear like loincloths and body paint. Like their bodies are just painted. And it's just because you have to see the muscles. And it's just these 2 brothers just fighting it out. And he kills him in the end. Like it's intense. And it's just like, whoa. And John Franklin had them do that at an Ontario Bible College chapel. And I think he really got flack for that. But he said, nope. And the makeup on their body, because they sweat like pigs when they do this, the makeup was flying. It splattered all over the wall. And John said, no, he just felt like that was anointing the place. He left the makeup on the wall. That's right. And I think he meant it, I don't know, but he got in a lot of trouble for that. But again, right? Like, so we just kind of stayed away because we just thought, you know what? It's just too big of a jump. It's too big of a chasm. And now, but see, that's why when I see what's happening in the body of Christ with movement, that just is so encouraging to me because I'm just like, that just did not happen when I was growing up. Like that just wasn't, and it wasn't weird. It was just like, it just wasn't there. Music was there and nobody wanted to bring it there. So, yeah. So I've seen a huge shift in the 40 years that, you know, and it's been a move of God. God has done that. And it's amazing.
So when you think about it, maybe as well, not just from the perspective of purposely staying away from the church and all that is embroiled in that first at least 10 years, what was it like bringing the kingdom through dance into this world that, like, you know, the non-Christian perspective of Christians who are artists is like stifled and no creativity and bad art.
Yeah,
you know,
totally.
so what never mind the actual spiritual opposition to the stories and truth that you're bringing. What was that like for you guys as you're walking that?
That's kind of a weird place too, because you have to, you know, when Jesus says, well, now my brain's going blank, but basically if you don't acknowledge me, I won't, you know.
The rocks are going to cry out.
Yeah. And yet there's times too, when if that's the first thing you say to someone when you're meeting them, because there is, just like dance had a lot of baggage in the church and you have to kind of pick your time when you bring that out. Christianity has a lot of baggage in other circles. So you have to kind of wait. And so really that became a lot of one-on-one conversations with our dancers, like, because they saw that we didn't beat them up, you know, in rehearsal. And some of the dancers would just say, but you guys are so nice. But because basically, so then I would ask this one ballerina who worked with like 3 ballet companies in Europe. And basically this one director, he would tell 3 women to come in because I want to give you this solo, but he would tell it to 3 people and they think they have this, you know, they've been given this thing, and 3 other women show up. So there's this, you know, setting, like manipulating, like to set them up just to fight one another, because he said, well, I do that because it just gets people like really. And I just thought, wow, like, so just tactics like that. You know, she'd talk about that. And this other ballerina from Mexico, you know, she'd just say that they basically stole her love for dance. Like, but she's, anyway, so stuff like that, right? Like, but then you'll have other dancers say that we're, you know, what? No, you guys aren't nice. So it depends on who you talk to. But no, yeah. So I would just have a lot of one-on-one conversations with them and just say, I'm so sorry that happened to you. And, you know.
So it almost sounds more of like a direct ministry, not necessarily ministry, but just living out being Jesus to the dancers and bringing the kingdom in just by doing your job well and in a Christ-like way. And
yeah. It doesn't mean there still wasn't any fights, because we also were very interested in the idea of collaboration, which again was a whole new thing. Usually how it is, the hierarchy is you have a choreographer, the choreographer works with the director, and the choreographer works with the dancers. The dancers don't say anything. They don't have any, you know, you just do what the choreographer says. There's no conversation. So it was also the very, you know, kind of more and more of this collaboration thing was happening. And so we had to find different ways to say, okay, well, it's a mutual conversation. The dancers do speak and say, what do you think about this? And so we had to kind of make our own rules for that. And so some people got kind of like ticked off about that. Well, I'm a choreographer too. And yet the choreographer, there usually has to be one person that has the final say. So we'd call that one the choreographer and the other one's the collaborators, right? But but just trying to work all that out so that everybody kind of knows their role, you know what I mean? Because you can't just then have somebody who doesn't have the heart for the piece to kind of railroad it and say, no, we should go this way. Well, hang on a second. Well, no, it needs to go this way. So we kind of made this rule that if it ever comes to an impasse like that, the person whose brainchild it was and who was the instigator of it makes that call. Yeah. But that was a lot of in the beginning. And that's why they had that kind of way it was done, because otherwise you just don't get anything done. And right. Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say, like, collaboration in the arts is such the way it's done now, right? Like there are places where it is very traditionally structured with the traditional roles, but more and more, especially as we see artists being like, I have to make a living. I have to find a way to survive. And so I take the jobs where they tell me what to do, but I also create my own work. You know, there's way more artists creating their own thing, doing their own projects than ever before, because they know the reality is if they don't, they will not eat half the time. And that was something actually when I was in school for theater, that was one of the things that they talked about, was being able to do your own thing in collaboration with other people, because that they saw, and this was again like the early 2000s, they were like, that's the only way forward. You're not going to survive as an artist if you're just relying on booking the traditional gig and having, you know, someone just hand you every little thing. Like, you have to be versatile. And so I think there's a way more stronger language of collaboration now than ever before, which is also exciting.
Yeah. So that was kind of, I mean, we didn't obviously, you know, create that, but that was kind of being played with and birthed at that time when we were, so we had to create our own new rules, right, about that, so that we would fight less. Because Like, who has the final say? Because you're not going to always agree on everything.
Yeah.
No, I think it should happen like that. Well, why are they exiting now? Like, no.
Yeah.
You know. So, yeah.
So what about dance now? I want to kind of maybe bring things forward a little bit. And you talked to, again, some of the shifts and changes that you started seeing going back, in the early 2000s. What about dance now?
Dance now. Well, I just think because there is more and more collaboration, and now with technology, like, see, that has just sort of blown out dance to another, really to another level. Like, the idea of being able to use video and things like that. And so, there's just so many more resources. And even now, I was thinking about the internet, because I thought, well, maybe there was more things happening, but the internet, we didn't have the internet, so nobody knew. Like, maybe so then I thought, well, maybe it was happening, but there was no place to find out, right? Like, so I think that's just kind of exploded, because you can look up, like I was looking up a choreographer from New Zealand just the other day and just seeing some stuff, and I'm going, cool. Like, like what's happening? Like, you can just be influenced by so many things now and see, go, wow, I like that. Or, I want to focus on that. You can get inspiration, I guess, from just so many different places. So it's just kind of snowballing, I guess, would be the thing,
And how do you see dance now in the church faith community?
There's much more of an openness, like, so that's just a real breath of fresh air, but I do, before I go to a church, I usually, have a talk with the pastor or whoever and just say, is dance okay to happen here? Like, I ask, I don't just,
Yeah.
But the thing that's still a bit, I guess, would be unusual for people is, I like in worship to just do a kind of a spontaneous dance. So there has been a thing where people will, if you have a choreographed performance to put into, right before or after the sermon, because the sermon is still the thing.
Yes.
Everything has to serve that.
Yes.
Which is, and I'm not cutting a sermon, but all I'm saying is, that's still a mentality from like when the printed word, like it was like when the printing press was invented, the idea of having that you could have a copy of the Bible yourself, like that was like, wow. And so the actual written word, the spoken word, pretty much all teaching was about the word. And it's true. We have to know the Bible. We have to, absolutely. But that's not the only way God communicates.
Yeah.
So that's all I want to say about that. Like, God will communicate, like when he talks about, you go for a walk and you can get a whole like sermon from God about so many different things, how he speaks through his creation, how he speaks through color, how he speaks through image, and what's interesting, there's these two PhD, and I don't have their names, but they actually did a research. They were educators. They wanted to find out all the inventions that have happened in the last, I don't know, 500 years. They did all this research. The idea came in an image in their mind. Whoever these people were that created something, so take And one of them was Einstein. So Einstein with MC squared, he didn't see MC squared, and he didn't see the formula. Mm-hmm. He saw an image, he saw pictures, and he used MC squared to describe what he saw.
Right.
So my point being is that one of the huge ways of communication that's powerful that God does is through image, not words. And that's the power of dance. Dance can create an image, an emotion that words cannot do. And that words just pale.
Yeah.
So there's just so many ways that God can speak, and words absolutely are powerful, but it's just not the only way.
Yeah.
Right. So, so it's still, the church is still sort of, because that format kind of works. Like if something's working, don't mess with the format, but I have seen some people, it's pretty cool. There's a group, I think it's in Newmarket, where they meet. They just get together and worship for an hour, because they always feel like, worship 10 minutes, you can't go longer than 10 minutes because you got to leave room for the sermon. And there's some people are just like, no, we just got started. What? And so all these frustrated worship people, just started, well, okay, we'll just go worship for an hour at this church in Newmarket on Sunday night or whatever. Right? So,
beautiful.
Yeah, go do that. God can speak just as much in a worship time to you as he can in a sermon.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? Like, so just to be open for other modes of communication. The sermon isn't the be all end all, basically.
Yeah, totally. I want to play the first 2 clips that you shared with me. So we're going to, I think, actually watch them back to back, and then we're going to chat a little bit about them.
Sure.
Here we go.
Apart
make me ball.
I just get like the chills, head to toe chills. It's just, so why don't
Thank you, Tara Olson. Thank you,
Yes.
Tara Olson. Whoever you are, I've never met you, but.
So why don't you share, Cynthia, just why those clips? How do they connect with you personally? Yeah, let's just talk about them.
Yeah. So, well, that song by Carrie, I don't even know how to say her name, Carrie Joby. Is that how you pronounce her name? And Cody Carnes. That was a song, interestingly enough, kind of they wrote it before this whole COVID thing happened. Like it was kind of like they launched the song in their church and then the shutdown happened. And so it became like an anthem for this time. And then, so that song I had heard and I'm just like, wow, God, you are for us. Like, it's what everybody needed to hear. God is for us in this time when we don't know what's going on. And then she makes this dance that's just that raw, like, you are for us, God. Like, it's just so, so encouraging. Like, and then the second one, because I'm so encouraged that it's not lovely, flowing, praise, worshipful. Yes, that's beautiful. I love doing that kind of movement too, but it's just like, she just has this raw, like just, and that's just so needed.
Yeah.
Because that's how life is. Life for so often isn't that. It's that's how I felt, right?
Yeah. It's this raw, honest.
That's how you feel. Yeah. And so hanging on. So the image, I was blown away because I could never create a piece like that, because if I put a cross in it, it just seems so tacky. But she figured it out, because whoever made that thing, they must have drilled it into the floor, because that's what it is. Like, you are just hanging on because you don't get it. Like, what am I doing here, God? And I'm trying to praise you, but, I praise you, but this isn't making any sense. So help me. And so, yeah.
I think the role of arts to be that true reflection of emotion and the full range of emotion. You know, like, we keep talking about how God can handle all things. He is all powerful. Yeah. He is strong and mighty and beyond our strength. But yet we always, or not always, but we so often have stopped short of really bringing it all and really just, as you said, just ripping all that open, just letting yourself go in that way where you are just, like, it doesn't, we barely do that in our private lives with Jesus.
No.
Never mind getting on a stage and just ripping that all open. Like,
let her rip, baby.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing. Like, she's that Tara Olson, like, she's a let her rip, baby, right? Like, so I just think, go girl, because that is where rubber meets the road.
Right? Yeah.
So, yeah.
That is so
And that's when Jesus meets us, when it's not going well. And he meets us when it's going well too. But what I mean is, like, when it's not going well, the first thing we think is, oh, I know for me, I'll just talk for myself. The first thing I would think was like, whoops, am I on the wrong? For years, I thought, well, maybe I just made a big mistake because nothing was going well. Everything was going really awful. This is just really sucks.
Yeah.
And so then you begin to second guess, I just missed the boat. Right?
Yeah.
But look at Jesus' life. Like, as he's carrying the cross to Calvary, he's like, this really sucks, like,
yeah.
Okay, like, take up your cross and follow me. I always somehow in my head thought it would be, if I'm really following God's will, that's when the party is like, woohoo, yeah, it's all cool, baby. Yeah. It's tough. when the going gets tough, the tough get going, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And that, I wish there was another way, but that's what makes us resilient.
Yep.
So,
No, it's
yeah.
You shared one other video, and so I'm going to play that now, and then we'll talk about it afterwards.
Okay.
Feeling like I'm breathing my last breath. Feeling like I'm walking my last steps. Look at all of these tears I've wept. Look at all the promises that I've kept. Put my all into your hands. Here's my soul to keep. I let you in with all that I can. You're not hard to reach, and you bless me with the best gift that I've ever known. You give me purpose. Yeah, you've given me thinking my journey's come to an end. Sending out a farewell to my friends. Far in a peace. Ask you to forgive me for my sins. Oh, would you please? I'm more than grateful for the time we spent. My spirit's at ease. I put my heart into your hands. Learn the lessons you teach. No matter when, wherever I am, you're not hard to reach. And you've given me the best gift that I've ever known. You give me purpose. Every day you give me purpose. In every way. Oh, you are my everything. Oh, you are my everything.
I don't know if this is wrong because someone else is telling me that it's wrong, but I feel this, so let me just like try my best not to let this happen again. We weren't necessarily put in the best position to make the best decisions. You can't be hard on yourself for it. These were the cards that you were given, so you have to understand that these, like, that's not who you are. You know you're trying to be the best you can be, but that's all you can do. If you don't give it all you got, you're only cheating yourself. Give it all you got, but if it ends up happening, it ends up happening. That's what's happening with me. It's like, God, I'm giving it all I got. Sometimes I'm weak and I'm gonna do it. And it's like, I'm not giving myself grace. I'm just like understanding that's just how it is.
I have to admit, I watched this video, I think 3 times after you sent it to me. And the first time I watched it, I just watched it. And then I thought about how all the Christians would react to this video. And then I went, okay, God, like, what is this? What is this? And I watched it again. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm seeing more now. And then I paused and I watched it again. And I got so much more out of it. So now, even like, you know, this being the 4th or 5th time that I've viewed it, I know I'm getting so much. But why don't you tell me a little, Cynthia, why did you pick this video?
Well, it's kind of a funny story. I'm at hair school right now as a performing artist. All the theaters are closed. So I'm like, all right, what am I supposed to do? So I'm in Stratford, whereas where Justin Bieber grew up, and I'm with all these students who are total Justin Bieber fans. And I'm like, okay, like, what's happening with Justin Bieber? So I thought I'll go home and I will look him up. And I saw this and I just went, he's singing to God. Like, what's happening? So then I read this article that he has really had a turnaround and has a face-to-face, like Jesus has rescued him. It's so beautiful. From his own words, if you can find the article in May GQ, May 2021. Anyway, and then I saw this and I showed it to my husband, and I just like, how we see it, what's so beautiful is that you can kind of see what you need to see. But some people think those dancers are demons. And yeah, maybe, but I see them as all the trappings that came with his success, all the distractions. And he talks about, God, you gave me this most beautiful gift, but I got so sidetracked with all these enticing things that came along with this incredible success that he had. Success. And that was his heartache, because he had all this success, but he was bankrupt emotionally, spiritually. He wanted to kill himself.
Yeah.
Because, and how God saved him is that, your purpose has to be in me. And I saw this piece because I teach kids all the time with different, and I always tell them, I said, your art form will kill you if it's not, if it's there to just feed yourself, it's never enough, and success will actually kill you. And Justin he will be the first one that will say that. Like, and that's what's so beautiful to me, this dance, it's not very literal. And those dances can mean so many different things to people. But to me, it is all the distractions. Like, they just kind of hang on him and they just won't let him go. And they're like, yes, I understand. But that's what he would say. All these people would say, yeah, I understand, but they don't. They just wanted stuff from me. They wanted money. He was a big ticket. So he felt so manipulated. And then when he makes a statement of what I'm going to do with my life, when he just starts to go, no, they just start backing away. Because we forget the power we have in our declaration of our voice when we say, and that's why it's so powerful when you say, when Jesus says you need to profess and declare your sin and your reliance on me, and you declare that Jesus is Lord. And there's a powerful thing in that declaration. And when he just started speaking, and then they all just, the hooks come off. Yeah. And it's not that they necessarily won't come back, but that's when, Jesus himself, I rebuke you, Satan, like there's a time, and so often I did not rebuke or declare. I probably took on too much, things all hanging over me too. Because there's power in our words in the name of Jesus. And so that's how I see that piece. And I go, good on you, Justin. I'm glad you found your way with the Lord, because otherwise you'd be in a coffin. And he would say that. So it wasn't worth it.
it's
all that success meant nothing. Zero, zippo.
It's amazing. It's amazing what the presence of God does in your life and how it shifts things and changes. And it's mind blowing. It's literally mind blowing. So last kind of question here as we're wrapping up. What gives you hope for continued growth? What gives you when you see young dancers and artists who are just longing to impact culture, longing to express themselves, what do you say to them? What gives you hope?
For a long time, I tried to steer people away. I know that sounds bad.
No, it sounds real.
But I said, you don't want to, it just is so hard. Are you up for it? Really? It'll cost you everything. And then I thought, I can't. that's not my place to say. But all I can say is that it is hard. But the hope is that it really is worth it. I have found that it's so worth it. But the worst doesn't come till later. So you got to really just sit there. Like if you're in a painful time, it does become worth it. And so that's really my unbelief, that I just keep thinking you don't want to bring hard times to people. But what I have found in that, when Paul talks about, you know, I'm thankful for the hard time, and I'm like, wow, I'm just not there. But I see now, as I'm more mature, that in that hard time was the only thing that could sift out what was the thing to hang on to, what was the really precious thing. And so that sifting process sometimes can feel that goes on forever, but that's my hope. The hope is in the sifting and in the hard time, there is the gems and the things that you wanted. Like I wanted, I'll confess, I wanted success like Justin Bieber. But I look at, and I'm like, wow, I really did want that. Now that isn't really, because and like he says, you know, we all have different cards. He had to deal with that. That's a huge test. That's something, yeah. But he's found grace. There's grace wherever you go. If you are called to, you know, accolade success like that, then God is there. If you really, you gotta run like that Tara Olson piece, man, you gotta run like hell and hold on to that cross. And when, like, you know, it's just all, you just can't give up.
Yeah.
And so it's that pressing in. When it says we press in, it's pressing in. It doesn't look like this. It looks like that. Like, you know, it. And so there's the hope. The hope is that it takes that, and it's, if you give that much, you find the gold, you find what's precious. And it's always what you find is Jesus, more of God. And then you go, yeah, okay, this is awesome.
Wow. Oh my goodness. This has been so good. This has been so good. All right. Before we go, we want to do a couple of extra questions that are just, you know, more faster questions here. What is one encouragement or practice you would give to other artists, specifically to dancers? So one encouragement or practice.
A practice, I think everybody should do contact improv. And if you don't know what that is, look it up. But it teaches you as a performer. It's so diverse, and it's a form of dance that you work with sharing of body weight, but it makes you listen differently. You listen. You have to listen to where somebody's weight is, and you have to really get your ears open and your senses open to where somebody's at. So in performance, I talk all the time about being present in the moment. What does that mean, right? You're like, okay, I think I'm present. I'm right here, my brain. But contact improv is that you just have to go with what comes, and you just have to be. And it's the paradox of letting go and responding. And that's what performance is. It's letting go and listening and responding to the audience, breathing with them. So it's a huge growth thing.
Even as you were just doing that, like I just wanted to move with you, and I was just like, that feeling of just being together and Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
And
you're moving me.
you find what you like. For me, what I discovered with contact improv about myself is that I'm just someone who just makes it happen.
Yeah.
Like I just force it happen. And I'm like, people are just like, whoa, I don't want to dance with her. Like, so I'm more of a, so I had to learn how to, okay, don't make it happen. But you learn that from ballet. Ballet is like, you know, you have to get on your center, you get your arm there, you get your head, you won't. And if you don't make it happen, man, you're on the floor on your face.
Yeah.
So, but contact improv will give you what you need to grow in your performance.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever, if you're in theater, if you're in movement, if you're a musician, I don't care what you are. If you're a poet, contact improv will help your art.
Yeah. That's cool.
To everything.
Okay. One or more, but another artist to check out and why.
Another artist. Wow. Who do I, right now?
Not to be someone current. It could be someone from, you know, who's passed on.
Okay.
Someone who's no longer creating, but you just think their work is just, you need to check them out.
Well, quite honestly, in terms of production, I was floored by Cirque du Soleil. In terms of how they create a production and how they invite the audience in. So that's what was mesmerizing to me about them. And people kind of go, well, I'm not into circus or I'm not into that. But they know how, and that comes with clowning, actually. But to have an audience, first time I saw them, they had 5-year-olds and 65-year-olds having such fun and delight together. So how do you do that? They're masters at that, of bringing delight. Yeah. But it's not just out of doing, watch me do my spectacular thing. If you really pick it apart, you'll see that they build character and they build rapport with the audience. And they usually do it through humor and silliness and cheekiness. Mm-hmm. And to the point where you buy in emotionally. And then, so how to get your audience to buy in to what you're doing. Yeah. They're masters at that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
All right. So we've been doing this thing where we do a speed round of questions. So these are a list of questions you have not seen. Oh. And I have my phone here. I put on 2 minutes on the clock. So we're gonna speed round. Oh. Yeah.
Okay.
Here we go. What's your next project?
Something called Body, Soul, Spirit.
Ooh. What's your dream project?
Dream project. To do a big dance project with like 100 dancers in like a big coliseum. Yeah. I never get to work with massive amounts of dancers.
If you could have coffee with anyone in the world, past or present, not Jesus, who would it be?
Past or present? Mary, the mother of Jesus.
What's your favorite childhood toy?
I call a whore all the time. I want to ask her about that.
Yeah. What's your favorite childhood toy?
My favorite childhood toy? I just played with hair. So that's why it's funny I became a hairstylist. So if it didn't matter, as long as I had hair, I just all I did was play with hair.
Nice. First movie or play that was meaningful to you?
A movie or play?
Mm-hmm. That was meaningful to you.
Well, the most meaningful play, it's not the first though, but the one that just blew my flippin' brain was Les Miserables.
Yes, so good. Fill in the blank. I'm happiest when I'm
connected with my family and my kids. Nice. And my work. Nice. When I feel connected to it.
Favorite midnight snack?
I think it's cheese.
Book or audiobook?
Oh man, I read so many books. My favorite book, really, that just came at an opportune time was The Road Less Traveled by Scott M. Peck.
And
or M. Scott Peck.
last question, fries or salad?
Salad! I love salad. I love fries too, but salad will win.
Yeah.
Especially when I have to wear white lycra.
Oh, wow. Well, Cynthia, I am just blessed beyond measure to have spent this last hour and a bit with you. I know when we first talked, I said, about 20, 25 minutes, but like at the 20-minute mark, we were just getting good. So we just had to keep going. And this is fantastic. So thank you to all of you who have journeyed with us over this last hour, that have stayed for the entire conversation. If you haven't already, comment below what things did Cynthia say that really resonates with you. We want to hear, we want to continue the conversation, as well as all the videos you saw today will be linked in the description box, so you can go check out those artists and the full videos there. Again, Cynthia, thank you so much for joining with us. We are blessed, and I look forward to what's next.
Okay, thank you. Have a great day, everyone out there.
Yes.
Go for it.